Well, good morning, everyone. I want to take a moment to welcome everyone and introduce the conference goals, say a quick word of acknowledgments, and a couple logistics updates. My name is Sam Newlands. I'm at the University of Notre Dame. I'm also the co-director for the Center for Philosophy of Religion and the co-PI on the Problem of Evil in Modern and Contemporary Thought, the project that is funding this conference. I want to thank everyone for being here and for many of you for traveling quite a distance to do so. I want to say a couple quick words about why we're having this conference to get a sense, and I think this will help us set the tone for what we want to have happen here today and the next 2 days. So as many of you know, in 2010, that marked the 300th anniversary of the publication of Leibniz's essays de Theodicy, the Theodicy. And there were numerous international conferences celebrating this event, including here in Lisbon. We also had one at Notre Dame. I should plug the volume. The volume for that is coming out next year with Oxford University Press, new essays on Leibniz's Theodicy. And we had funding for a follow-up conference to that, but we didn't want to just sort of rehash the same issues that were discussed there. And so although we've invited a number of the participants from that conference to be here again today, we wanted to expand the topic. So that conference focused on the content and the local context of Leibniz's Theodicy. And here we're talking about the reception of Leibniz's Theodicy, particularly in the 18th century in France and Germany, and then the ongoing relevance of Leibniz's work to contemporary philosophy of religion, contemporary religious studies. So we wanted to then bring sort of three groups together in discussion, and you probably represent one of these groups here today, maybe multiple of these groups. First, we wanted to bring some Leibniz scholars into the conversation. We also wanted to bring 18th century experts, and we wanted to bring those working in contemporary philosophy of religion and religious studies. And really one of the great goals of this conference is to foster discussion across these little sub-discipline divides. And so it's really important that you feel encouraged to ask questions on areas that you don't consider yourself an expert in. It turns out disagreeing with Karl Emmerichs on Kant, you don't have to actually know a lot of Kant. You can just do that very easy. I know from experience. Across generations as well. So we've got senior scholars here, we've got mid-career and junior folks. We've also got a number of graduate students from Yale, from Notre Dame, from Louvain, from, some small insignificant school near Boston. You've probably never heard of it. Great places all, and we're excited to have the next generation of folks contributing to this as well. And while, of course, we realize you all would love to be in South Bend, Indiana right now, another goal of this conference was we wanted to host it at a place that was both historically relevant and culturally interesting. And so when we thought about the topic of how Leibniz's Theodicy was received, we could think of no better place than the site of an event that many took to be a really clear and decisive refutation of Leibniz's views, namely the 1755 Lisbon earthquake. And of course, we wanted to have people enjoy the city of Lisbon, so we've organized some great events. We've left open lots of time for socialization, for hanging out with each other, talking further, so please take advantage of these things. We also wanted to draw on some experts to help us think about the Lisbon earthquake and its significance. And on Friday morning, we'll be hearing from them before we then go off on a walking tour led by some local archaeological experts here in Portugal. And the last goal I'll mention is that we also wanted to reach a broader audience than just the folks that could manage to come to Lisbon. So everything is going to be videotaped, is being videotaped. So fix your hair, etc. And everything will be put on the web and then heavily advertised. And you'd be amazed how many people watch these things. So we've asked, so yeah, keep that in mind as you ask your question. This could be your big moment or your dreaded moment. We've asked Susan Neiman to give an engaging and accessible talk on sort of the aftershocks of Leibniz's Theodicy, and we've invited some speakers that have a track record of speaking to broader audiences than specialists. And so these are what we're trying to accomplish here. Of course, any one of these goals might have been a conference unto itself, but in the spirit of Leibniz, we decided, what the heck, let's try them all at once. And maybe God will figure out how to harmonize it or something like that. Few acknowledgments, a couple individuals in particular. I want to thank Mike Ray, one of the co-organizers of this conference. Mike's been enormously helpful all along the way. In particular, he's agreed to handle all the complaints. So any concerns you have should be directed straight to Mike. I also want to thank Larry Jorgensen. Larry has been enormously helpful and helped scout out the sites and all the great stuff about the hotels and restaurants and the tour and all that. Larry gets the great credit for that. And lastly, perhaps above and beyond the call of duty, Joyce Sorowski. Many of you have been corresponding with Joyce. Great administrator. You know, Mike and I forgot to ask her to take care of the weather, or I'm sure it would have been sunny here. She's that great. And so we want to thank her. We also want to thank the Center for Philosophy of Religion and Notre Dame, who are helping foot the bill for some of this. And perhaps most important of all, the John Templeton Foundation for what has been 3 years of great funding and great collegiality. And they've been just a wonderful organization to work with. And we're very grateful for them, for their funding and support. Last couple quick little bits on logistics. You hopefully got a packet in your hotel room that has a detailed speaker schedule. It's more detailed than the sort of pretty one, and it has all the events on it. So be sure you're following that if you want to know where to go and when to be there. Feel free to see, of course, Mike or I or Joyce if you have any questions. The one thing that's really important in everything we do here is that we use microphones. It's absurd, right? The room is small enough that I could easily project. But please don't say anything unless you're speaking into a microphone. So we'll have them during Q&A. If you're a speaker and you tend to wander, as I tend to do, please be sure you're holding a mic or have a lapel mic clipped to you. There is also a reimbursement form in your packet. Please use that when you send in your receipts. And the last thing I should announce, it turns out there's the time change coming up here. On Saturday, clocks will be set back an hour. Great news for the sleeping folk, but horrible news in case you forget that and you don't make your flight. So keep that in mind. We'll try to remind ourselves of this as we go.
Saturday night or Friday night?
Saturday night. So at 2 a.m. So be sure to be awake at that point to change your clock. Okay. With that, I'll turn things over to Mike Ray.
I'm Michael Ray. I am, Sam said he's the co-director of the center, but since we're sharing this equally, I will say I am a co-director of the Center for Philosophy of Religion and a co-PI on the Theodicy project grant. I'm just going to make a few remarks about how the Q&A sessions will go, just to set some norms for those sessions. As Sam said, please speak into the microphone because these things are being videotaped. What I'll do, once the talk is finished, y'all can put your hands up for questions, and I'll call on someone to start asking a question, but then I'll recognize other hands and just keep a queue, and we'll handle it that way so that people don't have to kind of clamor to keep raising their hands and things like that. Even though it's a small crowd, please try to keep your questions and your replies fairly brief so that the entire Q&A period is not exhausted by one or two questions and answers. The chairs will cut you off if you go on too long. So I will try to do it politely, but you know. And as the conference goes on too, we will try to prioritize in the queue people who haven't had a chance to speak. So, you know, if your hand goes up and you're recognized second, but then it turns out 3 or 4 questions go by and you haven't been called on yet, that's not because we forgot about you. That's because we're at least trying to prioritize, folks who haven't spoken as much in previous sessions and things like that. Again, since it's a small crowd, hopefully this won't be a big issue, but it's a drag if someone keeps getting put in the queue and then always they're the ones toward the end who end up getting left off. And lastly, in terms of the thank yous, Sam thanked me for being enormously helpful. I think my role was largely confined to saying, yeah, Sam, that's a great idea. So much of the work for this was done by Sam. In fact, even to say so much of the work for this, I think that even that undervalues Sam's role in this. Pretty much all of the work was done by Sam and then by Joyce coming over here and scouting things out and so on. And also Larry helping us with the initial planning of all of this. We took a planning trip over here, and Larry sort of set the itinerary with Sam for the planning trip. So I'm really grateful to them, but especially to Sam. So.